This is going to be a review of the Carpa Mid Ventures. So this is their upgraded version of the Mid GTX they had before. Heavier shoe. They've changed the sole platform in these. They've made the toe on this, it's a rubber toe now, and it's a little more of a robust. It's sewn in, so you should have really good durability there. The sizing on them has changed a little bit. But the last pair that I wore 10 and a half, and I really loved that shoe because it had the right length in front of my toes. My feet measure out to a 10 and a half. With this particular version, I only have about this much space with the my toes, and it doesn't feel quite as roomy as the last 10 and a half. Especially in the width. The width, I was able to loosen up the toe boxes on the old versions, and my toes would just spread out, no problem for running and things of that sort. The new versions, I think I like the 11s a little better. They give me a better foot platform. So the differences are, the new version, the Venture, is higher. They don't put the neoprene on the back like they do with like it used to be a kind of a neoprene wrap like on the La Sportiva here, and I like that. This new one has Gore-Tex surround, so this area right here is all breathable and helps pump out some air. The top's all breathable. Overall it's a pretty breathable shoe. This leather is I guess protective of the ankle. I don't really feel like it's needed, to be honest, and I kind of prefer less stiff material there. I can sort of feel it on a new shoe. I feel like it would break in just fine. Like there's no major pressure points, but you can just feel it, especially if you've gone from shoes that didn't have any ankle rub at all kind of thing. So I notice that it's there, but I don't think it's a problem. I like their use of the strap here because that allows isolation for the toe box. These shoes tend to isolate well. The laces aren't quite as good as the previous version in my opinion. I like flat laces. They seem to stay where you put them. It's something it took me a while to notice it. The previous version that I had, I wore them for 8 months or 9 months, and I never once had to retie when I was hiking, other than if I wanted to tighten up my toe box or something like that. But all in all, I was extremely pleased with those shoes. These have a tougher sole on the bottom, so the size 11s, like it's if you wanted to do the whole standing on a golf ball on asphalt kind of thing to see where the pressure is. I did a 20-mile hike and I came back and put these on, and I just the 20 milers that I did, my feet were pretty sore and pretty swollen after that, but the shoes I wore are technically too tight. So when I put this on, I was standing on the rock edges just to see the difference in them, and these shoes are much more solid in the forefront, so you're not going to feel rocks and things quite as bad. So I think that's a good thing if you're packing or if you're doing really long hikes. If you're doing 20 to 30 miles in a day, it's nice to have some protection underfoot and still have a lightweight shoe that can get you there and get you back. This shoe should be fine if you're just towing into some light snow in the summertime. I kind of question some durability if you're really gonna try to throw on some strap-on crampons here, but it should be fine for light use. I mean, this is kind of the shoe that you might want to do, longer hikes in, that kind of thing. It is a little heavier, so that's going to deter. So maybe people would prefer this shoe for more backpacking. It just seems like the rubber or whatever foam that they put in here, this is definitely a lot heavier shoe than before. Maybe it's the leather on the edges here that I feel is unnecessary, to be honest. But it feels like it's in the sole. So they definitely stepped it up. Personally, I would prefer to see this sole. I don't even know if they could do it. Like if they could find like the sole child between this version and the previous version, where it's just a little bit more. I mean, the last shoe that the Carpa Mid GTX that I had before, I might could have changed out the insole and been completely happy with the result. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with that. Like this is more of a backpacking style. It's a little heavier than I would like. And I don't like that this shoe doesn't have the neoprene around the edges. Although this back piece does seem really comfortable. I can throw my toes out, and like when I'm stretching out in a chair or something, and it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother my tendons or anything. So all in all, it's a really comfortable shoe, and it's probably my favorite of all the shoes that I have here in front of me today. So do some comparisons to like the La Sportiva Blade here. The Blade, I did have to have this in an 11 to make it fit. The sole on this shoe particularly feels a little weird to walk in, and you can't isolate your toe box as much as I'd like. The lacing system here could really be improved. The laces just slide right through really easy, and you can reverse lace the top ones to try to isolate, but it doesn't do a good job, and it's something you're just gonna have to play around with a lot, and that's just not me. I don't like spending that much time trying to get my shoes to lock off. I love this heel part though. This would be an awesome downhill shoe, and you know, if you're really comfortable with just tennis shoes, that style of hiking, where if you're doing mainly groomed trails, this would be a really good shoe for all that, because I don't feel like you need to lock off your toes quite as much. It's only when you start getting some steeper mountaineering trails and things like that, where it might be some scree on and stuff, that I really feel like you need to be able to isolate your toes. And I'm kind of looking for that all around shoe, because I hate having a bunch of different shoes to wear, honestly. So let's see, the Oslo Falcon. This is a really good contender. I'm not a big fan of the laces, but they'd be really easy to replace, because it's just like 3 mil cord here kind of thing. So you can always replace the laces if they break, not a big deal. Overall it's a good fit. The sole's a little heavy, but it's got some really deep 5 mil lugs on there, so that's why. Other than that, this one has the nice soft ankle that I really prefer, to be honest. So no ankle problems. It's low cut enough, and it's also high cut enough that it keeps a lot of the dirt out. Because like a low cut shoe would be somewhere right in, I guess, this line area. So all of this is just kind of like foam on the ankles, and to me, I call that dirt protection. So that's what I like about this style of shoe. And then hopefully, you got this extra lace up here like they put in, and that just helps keep your toes from sliding forward and kind of locks you into the shoe. Fit on this shoe's good. The toe box on this shoe's good. This is also a size 11, so the fit is kind of size 11. So the fit is kind of on par with the Merrells, and maybe the previous 10.5s that I had in the Ventures were just randomly bigger than they should have been. Something else I should do. Show you guys the flexibility here. This is getting into a stiff shoe, but it flexes in the right place. At least the way I prefer the flex to be. So these guys, a little softer, and if you're standing on the golf ball with these, you can feel it a little bit. Now this particular shoe, if you're standing on a golf ball, you can barely, you don't really feel pressure in one spot at all. You just feel that you're standing on something. So it's got a pretty solid forefit. Let's see what else. Obviously these guys, if you stand on the golf ball, you don't feel it at all. It's just, these things are hard as a rock. They don't flex. Really comfortable shoe though. I'll do a review on those in a minute. I guess something I haven't pulled up is the Alp by Solemn. So this is a surprisingly flexible shoe. It's got a nice rubber toe cap, good for kicking in. This would probably be the most durable shoe that I have if you do a lot of mountain scree, that kind of thing. It's got a lot of leather, which is going to drop out the durability. I've found over time, especially with the last pair of Merrell Carpa Mids that I had, I wore those in single digit weather, and I absolutely loved them because they breathe so well that my feet tend to get cold from sweating. So in my hikes at 0 degrees and well into the negatives of wind chill, I had no problems. My feet stay completely warm. I don't wear wool socks anymore. I kind of got into that craze, and I've realized that they just don't dry out fast enough. They don't release moisture, and I sweat way too much. So I know wool's supposed to be insulating when wet, but dry synthetic is much more insulating than wet wool. So my synthetics dry out really well. I don't get too picky about brands. I mean, I'll pick some up at Walmart, and they like, you just look at them and see what's a decent looking sock, and they've all worked out well for me. I can tell a huge difference. I actually did a hike the other day, and I think it was like a 16-miler or something, and I grabbed my wool socks, and I hadn't worn them in a long time. I don't know why I grabbed them, probably because they were a little high and they were super thin. But when I got done, my feet were saturated, and I was like, man, I don't remember my feet ever being this wet in the past, because they had like you've been in the bathtub for too long. How your fingers get all wrinkly. My feet had gotten all wrinkly like that. So I went out and I did another 16 or 20 miler, and I put my synthetics back on, and it was a very similar hike. These hikes were in Yosemite, and my feet were dry at the end of the day. So socks make a huge difference, and for me, I cannot wear wool socks, and that's the reason I am specifically looking at very breathable shoes. So for me, this kind of rules it out. I'm not a big fan of this one cleat though. I will say that. It's other than that, this is a pretty durable shoe, and it's a pretty comfortable shoe all around. If I'll do a specific review on that one too. So back to the North Faces, you got the backpack version here. Ankles don't like that. Really durable shoe though. Like this is a little bit lighter. So if they kind of took some designs from this shoe and put them into this shoe, I would be comfortable with that. Like I really like this mesh material that's on the hike boot. It feels super tough. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but to be such a thin outer bit of material here, it just feels really solid and really durable, and the way you lace this one up. So I like that. This boot, way too narrow, the Ultra Surround. So that would probably be the closest competitor, because they're both using Gore-Tex Surround kind of thing. And I would prefer this sole just because of the climbing edge over this one and that, and it's got more lugs in the middle where I tend to get most of my traction from. So, but all in all, this shoe feels kind of squishy. This shoe definitely, it feels like a solid shoe, and it is a solid shoe. So, I guess that's about it for the Merrells. If you guys have any questions, let me know, and I'll do what I can to help.